Welcome to Dreamcatcher Financial Solutions Online. So those of you who subscribe to our YouTube channel, thank you. Visited our website, our social media, or even the people that we met in person. So I want to say, thank you for visiting us, Dreamcatcher Financial Solutions. So my name is Jason Allison. I'm the founder of Dreamcatcher Financial Solutions and also an executive director here in our organization. I'm with my beautiful wife, Stephanie Allison. So we're going to talk about a topic that isn't often talked about, and that's the topic of divorce and how it affects us financially. So we have clients that are going through divorce. We have clients who have been through divorce, and it just does a number on people's financial health, mental health, all these different things, and that's the topic we're going to talk about. So before we go into the topic, I wanted to go and introduce my beautiful, amazing wife, Stephanie Allison. If you can, go ahead and introduce yourself, babe.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today with Dreamcatcher, and we're going to talk about some uncomfortable topics today. And with life comes divorce sometimes, and sometimes we don't talk about it in our finances. We just kind of go through it and we figure it out along the way. And what we're here for is we want to make sure that anybody that we meet with that is going through some life changes or life events like divorce, we can navigate you through that. We can talk about it. We can keep it comfortable, transparent. It's all private, confidential, and we just kind of guide you based on how we would guide anybody in the industry. So definitely encourage anybody that's going through divorce or contemplating it or going, and maybe you already been through divorce and you're just trying to figure it out from there. So yeah, we're talking about something a little bit uncomfortable today, but we can talk about it, and that's the healthy part.
Absolutely. So I think the goal is that this content or this video, this topic gets out there. So to let people know that they're not alone, that there's people out there that have gone through this or are going through this with you. So divorce is a very it's a very heavy topic, so to speak. So let's talk a little bit about some of the clients we've helped in the past. I know a couple of years ago we had a young man in his 30s, maybe his mid-30s, children, had a good job, but all of a sudden things didn't work out when it came to him and his relationship with his wife. Mm-hmm. So they decided to get divorced. Well, he wanted a divorce, but he was actually the income earner. Mm-hmm. So can you talk a little bit about that client a little bit and kind of the scenario we had to help him with when it came to securing his financial, his financials, his 401k, his retirement, his insurance, his benefits, but he was planning to leave his marriage behind. Yep.
So it's definitely hard to talk about moving forward with a divorce, and when you're the primary income earner, a lot weighs on you financially, and you want to make sure that your family's okay, your children are okay. So it becomes an emotional part of decisions, and that's where I encourage anybody to talk to a financial professional. So when we're talking about this gentleman, the first thing that we did when we sat down with him, and I said, just remove anything that you might think that we're thinking about you right now. Let's just have a conversation like I'm one of your great friends, and I just want to know what you're feeling and what you're going through, and then we'll go dive a little bit deeper. And then we go into talking about doing a financial needs analysis, and that's really important because that's where numbers don't lie. Numbers are not going to lie. If I go through the numbers with you and get to know you on paper, we'll be able to give you some forecasting, some guidance on what to do next, and how what asset you might have might affect you and the partner and the spouse that you're separating from or moving forward from, what that could mean long term, short term, how you can navigate that with your attorney, and we're just part of that conversation and making sure that you're healthy going forward. And then I also ask them, when we're making some decisions here and I'm guiding you and making some recommendation, all I ask is that we try not to be too emotional about it and we think long term. So we want to take care of the children, we want to take care of the baby, and no matter what, this person's going to be a part of your life forever because you share children. There could be grandchildren in the future. So it's a very healthy discussion, and even though maybe there's some uncomfortable, maybe there's some anger, maybe there's some bitterness going on, I ask them, let's not think emotionally right now. Let's think about financial health, because numbers, again, don't lie. And when we think about this long term, we can separate a lot, we can forecast a lot, we could do a lot. We just have to start this conversation now before you go through the actual divorce to make sure it's healthy for you and your former spouse. Yes, you're the primary income earner, but that doesn't mean that you have to worry about 10, 20, 30 years from now. This is a two-party situation where you're cutting it off right now, so let's move forward in a healthy way, and this is what you can put on the table to your attorney.
Absolutely. So great advice. Now let's talk about the emotional part, because you just now mentioned that you gotta eliminate emotions when it comes to these financial decisions, because the reality of it is the financial situation is real, right? So once emotions are set aside, or recovery, so to speak, or healing happens, the decisions you make while you're going through that process is absolutely important. So can you elaborate a little bit about the emotional strength you got to have for your financial future when it comes to this process?
I really think emotional strength when it comes to divorce really is making sure that you're meeting with anybody that's licensed, like an attorney is licensed, right? So financially, when you're thinking forward, you should meet with the licensed financial professional so that they have your best interests for you on the other side when you're navigating what you're going to be facing going forward. So you don't feel alone, and you don't feel like it's all on you to make that decision. You'll have options put in front of you. So that emotional part is very important to go through and to navigate and to heal. But when it comes to money, that's when we come in and I'll say, if we do this, this is how it'll probably work out. If we do this, this is probably how it's going to work out. So just looking at what options are out there before we go and we just jump into making an emotional decision and being upset and making decisions, even on anger. It's not really healthy. It could just get a little bit volatile through the court system and through divorce. So we just encourage you, let's just look at it from this point so that you go in looking mature, feeling confident, knowing that you know what you want, you're taking care of your children, and that all parties are going to be healthy going forward. And the focus is always, making sure the children are okay if they're under 18, and finding that balance between each other. So a lot of emotions, but if you have a financial professional, you have an attorney, you have licensed people on your side, that's the best money you're ever going to spend, and that's the best time you're ever going to spend, because you'll look back 5, 10, 20 years later and you'll say, I'm so happy I did that, because I didn't navigate that by myself and I had somebody guiding me through that.
Absolutely. So when somebody is going through the process of divorce, and it happens a lot, sad to say, and as a financial professional, the professionalism that we have to maintain, we're not judgmental, but it is very important. Would you agree? It is very important that you meet with somebody about your financial well-being while you're going through this process. Can you elaborate on a little bit about assets, about retirement, about homes, about vehicles, and how all of that encompasses an impact on what the divorce, the outcomes of what the divorce entails?
Yeah, definitely. So when we talk about assets, like the biggest asset usually is when there's a 401k or a TSP or retirement account with an employer that has been created while the marriage was in place. If you're in a community property state, now you have to separate that, and that's a 50-50 pot usually. So that's an asset. And then you think about Social Security as even an asset. Sometimes people don't really think about that being an asset, but I've had families or divorced spouses that they got all the way down to retirement. They're remarried, but the person that they were not, that they left, that their former marriage, they actually still have a part of the pot because it was established in that previous relationship or previous marriage. And then when they get down to retirement age, it does play a factor. So having that guidance and looking at that as an asset as well. And then we look at children and the assets that children can have. So if you have children's savings plans, a college fund, those are really important to figure out who would be managing that, who would be taking care of that for the children, what party is going to take care of it, how are the decisions going to be made on it, because you can have, and I've seen this time and time again, they forget to talk about that asset for the children, and then the children age to 18, and then that spouse that's been contributing to that account all these years comes down to age 18, and then they're told, well, there's nothing in that account. because the other party was managing that account and they had no idea what was going on. So they feel a little bit like the wind knocked out of them because they didn't anticipate that there wouldn't be anything in that pot for their children. And there's also, just making sure that when we're talking about separating and divorce with children, that those children, there is an asset that's being built with some of those support payments. So there's a lot of healthy discussion around assets, but those are just a couple examples of assets, long-term, short-term. You have your emergency funds that we should be talking about. What does that look like? What does that pot look like? How should that be separated? And how do you move forward with that? So there's all these different assets inside, down to medical and dental. How is that going to work for each party as you go forward, and how long will that be taken care of by the responsible party? So just making sure that there's those healthy conversations as you navigate divorce.
The history of our business, we've seen a lot of situations when it came to the topic of divorce. Now, even recently and in the past, people have come to us and there's a sense of fear. There's a sense of they feel like we're judging, which we're not. Everything's healthy here and confidential. But if somebody came to you and said, I'm thinking of calling it quits. I have this and this and this. I have a 401k, I have assets. Or even somebody who said, I don't have much, but I'm thinking about taking this route in my life of divorce. What kind of advice or what would you tell them first?
Great question. I think it's really important for us to be transparent when we sit with anybody that's contemplating divorce. One of the first questions I would most likely ask is if they've retained an attorney so that we can have a mutual discussion, a transparent discussion. But I also reassure anybody that we're working with that they shouldn't feel shame. They shouldn't feel embarrassed about talking about divorce if it's a decision that they've personally made. And it must be that serious if they're coming to us and actually prompting the discussion about divorce and how it's going to look for them. So we're here to navigate that conversation. We're not going to make decisions on their behalf. We're just going to guide them in as a financial professional. We're going to guide them on how that would look going forward, but definitely should be having some professionals on your side as you navigate divorce so that a lot of decisions aren't made emotionally. We want to make some good decisions because when divorce happens, we're affecting different parties. How does it work in your state? What is it going to look like long term? Are both employed? There's all these factors that are playing into it. So having an attorney, paying the money for an attorney and having that attorney represent you, having a financial professional to guide you with your assets on the flip side is really important for the health of moving forward. And again, it's a no shame conversation. It's private, it's confidential. We're licensed, so we can't go and disclose that you're contemplating it or you're thinking about it. And it's a judgment-free zone. We just have a good conversation about it. And if you decide to move forward, great. If you don't, great. And we just hold your hand along the way. And I always say anybody that we work with, we're going to get to know you, we're going to grow old together, and we're going to help you navigate some of these decisions that you're contemplating.
So I want to make mention here that you know what you're talking about, Stephanie, my beautiful, amazing wife, because you went through it. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Those of you who don't know, my wife, well, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I am divorced, and I'm remarried, obviously, to Jason, but I've been through divorce, and it could be especially for us Indigenous women, or I'm also Christian, it could be a shameful time. It was really an emotional time, an unsure time. You spend years thinking that that's what it was supposed to be, and then you're now finding yourself navigating yourself in a different direction. So yeah, I've been divorced, and I'm appreciative of that experience, but life moves forward, life goes on, and the last thing that we should feel anything about as far as shame is, I don't feel shame about it. I'm very happy that I went through it. I experienced it. It made me a better wife today to Jason. I don't know, you could be the judge of that. But I'm okay with it. And I think that's really important that that we become okay with it. So yeah, And I wish I had somebody like a financial professional guiding me at that time. I didn't. So it's very personal to me when I do meet with anybody that's going through divorce, has gone through divorce, or contemplating divorce. It's just a really heavy topic, and it could come with a lot of shame, and it could come with a lot of embarrassment. And I've done it, I've been there, and you have every reassurance with me that I'll never judge you for it, because I went through it, and there's no shame in it. We move forward.
Awesome. So amazing. So yeah, Stephanie was divorced, so she knows what she's talking about. And luckily she picked me, and luckily she picked to marry me. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. So Dreamcatcher Financial Solutions, guys, if you know anybody that's going through divorce, or maybe you have questions about it, what better person to talk to than somebody who's been through it? So that's one of the topics that I wanted to tackle, was the topic of divorce, because a lot of people in Indian country are going through this this time right now. So, and not only us, but some of our team members, some of our people that work with us throughout Native America have gone through this or are going through it too as well. And the topic we're talking about is divorce. And one of the topics that we've been, not topics, but the situations we run into with our clientele is some of them are going through divorce, and how the retirement accounts, whether it's pending, whether it's sitting there, or whether it's about to be distributed, how it's affected by something as impactful as divorce. Can you elaborate a little bit on some of the situations that we've encountered in our organization?
Yes, when you're going through divorce or navigating divorce, we've had cases where there's a retiree that's 65 now and had a retirement account, and they didn't go through an attorney, they just kind of went through the process of divorce. So they didn't pull apart the retirement account, and they just left it as is. And the retiree is now remarried, and the person that they divorced was never remarried. So as they get to retirement, because they didn't piece that apart and they didn't put it on paper what that looked like, that whole time that retirement account was being contributed to and accumulating. Now he's at 65. Now that ex-spouse wants a part of that pot, and that pot is a big pot. So even though we're thinking that, hey, this is 30 years old, I'm divorced, and now we're at 65, it's really important that we talk to a financial professional, because we need to pull those types of accounts apart based on the divorce and what the divorce agreement is, the decree going forward, because now this gentleman is 65, and now possibly up to half of his account goes to his ex-spouse, leaving little to none for the new spouse that has been actually married to him longer than the previous spouse. So it's really important to have a conversation with a financial professional, especially surrounding your retirement account, because sometimes your employer will say, well, you can't change anything. Well, divorce is a life event, and we got to make sure that we're having that conversation, and you only usually have 30 days to make some life event changes. So if you're going through divorce, you have an employer, you're still going to be employed there, it's really important that you use that 30-day window from that divorce to make some changes inside your retirement plan, because you could be like this gentleman that has accumulated a big pot, and now he has to share because it was not discussed or put on paper how that retirement account would work going forward.
Wow. So those kind of real situations happen. Unfortunately, it's out there. So that brings me to, you just triggered a memory in my mind about a client that we had. Now, this person was divorced back in their 30s, I believe, 30s or 40s. They got divorced, and they didn't do that. They didn't change they didn't do what they needed to do when it came to their assets. They continued to work. In the meantime, they ended up with somebody else. They found the love of their life, and after the divorce, and they lived and happily, but not married. Mm-hmm. Happily together, but not married. And then this person passed away, I believe in their early 70s.
Correct.
And this person had not even talked to the person he divorced in his 30s, but being that he never changed his assets and what have you on paper, the current girlfriend, the current companion, was entitled to nothing.
Yep.
Can you elaborate on a little bit about how important it is that when you're making these life changes that you have to sit with a financial professional? By the way, that broke my heart. So
Yes, so what happened in this case is the Social Security was actually, the former married spouse was entitled to Social Security and not the spouse and the companion that the retiree was with, because they were never legally married. So although they spent all those years together, she's been with him, helping support him, even took care of him while he was transitioning out of this world onto the next, she wasn't really left anything as far as Social Security. And then the 401k account came, and there was a conversation about that, and he never updated the beneficiary. And that was really tough to watch, because now she has to make a decision about whether she's going to take this former spouse or just kind of let it go. And us Indigenous women, us Indigenous people, we just don't fight sometimes. We don't want to fight. We don't want to go through it. And unfortunately for this spouse, she just decided, you know what, I have what I have and what I built, and I'm just going to move forward, let her have it. And that was the end of the conversation, because no beneficiary was updated. She could have tried to go to court and go through, but that's a whole process in itself, because they were never legally married. And then we look at the other side of that scope. If it's a qualified account, like a retirement account, let's say that that spouse was named, then she would have to face what's called an inherited IRA, because she's not the legal spouse. That means she only has 10 years to pay the taxes that are due on that account. So it goes into tax qualification and tax conversations with how that money will be distributed. If the couple was never married, it's now an inherited IRA, and that comes with taxation issues that we have to navigate as well. I mean, we're here to help. We're going to navigate. I've helped so many people with inherited IRAs, but there's really important discussions inside of, also, if you find a new companion, how does this work for them when you get married again? All these different components that we should have as we go forward. So that's what we do as well. So say somebody that met with us does go through divorce, I always leave that conversation and say, okay, now that we're working together, we're going to check in every few years. And if you meet somebody new and you decide to get married, or you decide to have a long-term relationship, we're going to have to talk about that, because you do have some assets that you disclose to me that you want to make sure that you're planning for as well as you move forward and as we get older and we age.
Absolutely. So, all right, guys. So Dreamcatcher Financial Solutions Online. My name is Jason. This is Stephanie. Thank you for joining us. And we talked a little bit about the topic of divorce, which is not necessarily a fun topic to talk about, but is absolutely important. Guys, I want you guys to know, and those of you who are going through this, thinking about it, or have gone through it, that these financial decisions, these financial components, these decisions that we have to make are deeply impacted, and that you should definitely talk to somebody. And that way it's going to be worth it in the long run, as far as divorce, as asset accumulation, all these different things later on in your life. So guys, thank you for joining us. Dreamcatcher Financial Solutions Online. Thank you.